Aleppo, one of the oldest cities in the world. A city that once stood as a symbol of culture and resilience, now finds itself at the heart of one of the most shocking turnarounds in modern warfare. Syrian rebels have seized control, and Russian forces, against all odds, are retreating. But how did we get here? And what does this mean for the future of Syria? Stay tuned, because this story is unlike anything you've heard before. The most frequently asked questions are on this channel. To get more information, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we need to look back. Aleppo's descent into chaos began in 2012, when it became a central battleground in Syria's brutal civil war. 4 years, the city was divided, the eastern side controlled by rebels, the western side by the Assad regime. The battle for Aleppo has seen countless lives lost and unimaginable destruction. But in late 2016, it seemed the tide had turned. Syrian government forces, backed by Russian air power, reclaimed the city in a bloody campaign. Fast forward to today, and the story has flipped yet again. The most frequently asked questions are on this channel. To get more information, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment. Over the past few months, a coalition of Syrian rebel groups launched a bold offensive, taking advantage of shifting dynamics on the ground. With renewed support from foreign backers and advanced weaponry, they managed to outmaneuver Syrian government forces. What's even more surprising is how quickly the rebels advanced. Military analysts say this level of coordination hasn't been seen in years, raising questions about who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes. Perhaps the most shocking element of this story is the apparent retreat of Russian forces. The very troops who played a decisive role in securing Aleppo for Assad are now pulling out. Why? There are several theories. Some suggest Russia is overstretched due to its ongoing involvement in Ukraine. Others believe there's growing dissatisfaction within the Kremlin about the cost of the Syrian war. And then there's the possibility that this is a calculated move, a temporary retreat to regroup and reassess. For Assad, the loss of Aleppo is a devastating blow. The city was a cornerstone of his narrative that he was regaining control over Syria. Now, with rebels back in control, his grip on power looks more fragile than ever. While the political and military implications are significant, it's the people of Aleppo who bear the heaviest burden. After more than a decade of war, they've seen their homes destroyed, their loved ones killed, and their futures stolen. The humanitarian situation in Aleppo is dire. Food and medical supplies are running out, and with the fighting continuing, it's incredibly difficult to get aid to those who need it most. This is more than a story about war. It's a story about survival, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of a people who refuse to be forgotten. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay informed. Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming out of Russia, Ukraine, and also Syria, but by far our biggest news of the day is coming out of Syria because for the first time since 2016 we are seeing rebel forces actually breach the city of Aleppo, which is controlled by Assad's regime, which is of course Russian-backed, and right now the Assad regime is on the run and they are really struggling to hold the city of Aleppo, and of course this is the first time this has happened in years, and it looks like Assad might be some trouble in the city of Aleppo as that entire city is under siege right now by these rebel forces. Also, we do have video evidence of these attacks, and also the rebels taking tons of military equipment from the Assad regime, and the Russians are running off as well and not providing much support to their buddy down there in Syria. So we have all that news as well, and also on another front we are seeing massive Ukrainian attacks on the area of Crimea, as well as the potential of a ship being destroyed as well, and we have that news also, and we're also seeing a large attacks happening on the Russian mainland as oil depots and refineries are getting slammed and hammered by the Ukrainian forces. We're also hearing on another front that Putin is threatening to strike decision-making centers in Kyiv as a result of the recent attack of strikes on the Russian mainland, but with that we're jumping into our first piece of news, which goes to Visrad 24, and like I said, the biggest piece of news today is that the Syrian rebels from the Idlib province of Syria have now entered the city of Aleppo itself, and this is very big news like I mentioned, because this is the first time this has happened since 2016, and the last we heard the pro-Assad forces had control of the city of Aleppo, but now that is changing very rapidly, and once again the Russians are not even helping out their buddy right. Now to defend the city, the Russians are running off and blaming the Syrian forces for letting the city get taken by these rebels. So jumping into our next post here, we actually have a battle map showing you exactly what the situation is on the ground. So just a quick overview of the map right here down here in the bottom left corner. You can actually see this is the area of Idlib down here, which is where the rebels are from, and you can see right down here, this is that area where the blue marker is right down here, and it looks like the rebels made a path all the way up through this little red line here into Kfar Aleppo. They took that area as well and many other villages along the way, and then made their way all the way up here to western Aleppo, and this is where they begun their line of confrontation here, and this is where it's begun. But first of all, let's take a look at our footage from Kfar Leo to show you exactly what we're looking at here. So as you can see from Viagra 24, the Syrian rebels from Idlib have taken Kfar Aleppo, and that is confirmed to have been taken from Assad's forces, so that is a done deal when it comes to taking that area. So moving up here to our line of confrontation where the fighting is currently taking place right here, you can see this is New Aleppo, and this is where most of the fighting is going on currently. But let's take a look at our first post here, which goes to apparently Thomas Lin on Twitter, and right here you can see that a Syrian rebel soldiers show some of the vehicles that were abandoned by the regime and the 46th Regiment base in western Aleppo, and at least 2 tanks and a BMP as well. So let's take a look at the video. So right here in the background, the guy is actually talking about the tanks. I'm going to go ahead and mute him. By the way, he's talking about the tanks and the BMPs, which were just left behind by Assad's forces. And once again, some of this equipment was actually donated by Putin to Assad, because once again Assad is Putin's buddy in the Middle East, and he's also committed many atrocities as well himself. But as you can see, this rebel here is talking about all the equipment they've taken, and that is not the only pieces of equipment they've taken. They've taken also supply bases and other places as well, which contain a ton of ammunition and equipment, which these rebels will use against the Assad regime in the future. But with that, we're jumping into our next post here, and this one's actually going to show us the Bashar al-Assad statue being taken, and of course this is a statue of the brother of Bashar al-Assad, and this is his brother's statue, which was erected a while back actually to honor his dead brother. He died in a car accident, I believe. And right here you can see that the rebels are seen lowering the Syrian flag at the statue of President Alad's dead brother Basil near the Syrian military intelligence headquarters near New Aleppo, following reports earlier today of its capture. So let's take a look at this video and see the rebel forces taking the flags down. So right here you can see there is the statue here. It looks like an equestrian statue of sorts of the brother of the Bashar al-Assad, the leader of Syria, and there is the flags which are about to be taken down by the rebels to show that they are now in control of the place and no longer the Assad regime. So once again, this site right here with the statue of Bashar's brother or Bashar's brother here is actually a site which is targeted quite a bit by the rebel forces. This is a very significant site for them to attack, because it symbolizes the Assad regime and once again his brother, so that's why they keep attacking it, and that has been taken near the Syrian military headquarters today. So moving on to our next piece of footage here, we actually have footage of the rebels actually entering the city of Aleppo right here, and this one goes to Geo Insider, and we can see that scenes are coming out from inside Aleppo, and we actually have the picture and video evidence of that. So to take a look at our first picture, here you can see that there are the technicals driving in with all the rebels on the back. It looks like right next to a highway or some major thoroughfare right here. But they are coming into New Aleppo and also into the neighborhoods around western Aleppo, so that's where they're entering from. And let's go ahead and take a look at the video and see how many are coming in. So as you can see, somebody is sneakily filming these guys right here as they're jumping around and trying to take, it looks like, posters of AAD down or something like that. They're also moving through the city actually trying to take it, while they're also taking the propaganda down as well. So there is more proof they are entering Aleppo right now. And it looks like there's a decent amount of forces actually entering the city, and looks like they're pretty well kit out, so they are not just ragtag forces. It looks like they do have some good equipment, and probably equipment that they've stolen from the bases that they've already taken so far. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one's actually going to go to another neighborhood inside of western Aleppo, and where we can see more fighting taking place, and also a video here. So we do see that it has been confirmed that the western part of the city has been entered, and also of course we do have that video, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at that right now and see what's happening. So right here you see there's some civilian filming this from his apartment or something like that, and there's all the rebels running through the streets, and once again they are taking it block by block wherever the Assad forces may be. And once again we've gotten a lot of reports that the Assad forces are apparently running off along with the Russian forces as well that were mixed in with them. So far not much resistance being put up here, and it looks like the Assad regime was pretty much a paper be like the Russians have turned out to be, so not very successful whatsoever for those forces. And once again, just to recap, this is the western part of Aleppo right here that we're looking at on the map, and this is where most of the fighting is taking place right now, and that is the angle of confrontation and attack that we're seeing from the rebel forces. And of course they are making their way into central Aleppo, and we expect that actually might happen by tonight. So we are looking for that pretty soon, and it could be happening sooner than later, but with that we're moving on to our next post here, and this one goes to War Translated, and so keep in mind here that this is not just a failure for the Syrians not protecting their territory, at least for the Assad regime, but this is also a failure for Putin himself, because Russia has been heavily involved in Syria for quite some time, and now that we're seeing here that according to Russian channels the Russians are now blaming the Syrians themselves for the ongoing collapse, and the irony is very hard to miss, writes Ward Translated. He said, considering that just a couple of years ago they mocked the US for withdrawing from Afghanistan for almost identical reasons, and now it seems it might be their turn, and only this time the consequences will be much more severe, and the irony is definitely not hard to miss here. The Russians, who are apparently running off very quickly and not helping out their Syrian buddies, are letting the place go to hell and back. To the rebel forces. So the Russians once again did mock the US for withdrawing from Afghanistan, and we didn't run from Afghanistan, we simply withdrew. We had that plan in motion already. Of course it was a bit of a disaster, but we won't go into that right now. But the Russians are once again running away and not helping out their buddy very much, and we're seeing here that they're already trying to make excuses for why that is happening, so not very shocking whatsoever, but another embarrassment for the Putin regime. But moving on here to our next post, we're moving away from our Syrian news and that major situation going on, and we're moving into our news about Putin and his attacks recently on Ukraine, and we're getting some new threats coming out of the Kremlin this time, and this time they're getting a little bit more severe, and I'm not sure if it's actual real threats or bluffs. We never really can make heads or tails of that, but you have to assume that there must be some credibility to it. But once again it's coming from Putin, and he lies quite a bit, so take it for what you will. But we are hearing that apparently Russia is considering and drawing up plans to target decision-making centers in Kyiv, meaning the government buildings, and it's not sure what munition they would use to do that, presumably maybe an IRBM missile, but I'm not really sure. But in the same sentence Putin did mention that Russia has several Arctic missiles, which are those IRBM. They're ready for use, and they've begun serial production of that missile, and also Russia produces 10 times more missiles than all NATO countries and will increase production by a quarter. So not only is he threatening Kyiv to strike their government buildings, he's also threatening NATO and the West as well in the same sentence. So once again Putin is getting very desperate. It's really coming out in his tone here, and also what he's saying, and this is more proof of it. He's getting very desperate and starting to lob the threats on a regular basis, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But anyways, moving on to our next post here. This one goes to the K post, and while Putin was over there yapping about targeting more civilians, we also got word here that apparently Ukraine was actually taking some action against Russia, and we saw explosions in Russian-occupied CRI at this hour, and this was of course at 4:53 a.m. today. Reportedly Russian ammunition stockpiles, or an S-400 air defense system, was struck and may be destroyed, but we are awaiting further information about exactly what was hit. But taking a look here you can actually see what part of Crimea was hit, and it looks like it's over here on the western side of Crimea, right on the coastline, so that is what we're seeing. And also here is a picture of the smoke and explosion from some system or something here right along the coastline, and once again we do have a video, so let's go ahead and take a look. So right here you see there is the smoke right there on the Syrian coastline. Once again we're not exactly sure what this is, but it was something and it was struck, but we're really just not sure exactly what has happened here, and you know there is always the possibility that even though the reports are that apparently something was struck, this could be Russian incompetence, and maybe it's being misunderstood as a strike. So this is what we're looking at, but once again we do need some more detail on it before reaching any concrete conclusions. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Asen Yuri, and we're getting some very interesting information here. This is very preliminary, so take it with a grain of salt, but we're hearing reports that it's possible that a Russian ship of the Peter Morganova was struck by Ukrainian WAVs last night while at dock in Tups in the Kandar Krai region of Russia, and we got some picture here of showing some smoke coming from a harbor itself, and apparently that ship was stationed in dock there at the time of this explosion, so we're not exactly sure if it was destroyed or hit, but the reports are coming out and rumors on the back channels of Telegram that apparently it could have been hit, so presumably we will have CONF, or we'll be able to disprove this by our stream time tonight, and see if this is actual proven evidence here of the ship being hit. But once again right now we don't know very much, but there is a picture of the ship, and this could have been a big catch for Ukraine if it was indeed taken out, but we will have to wait and see. But moving on here to our next post, this one goes to Geo Insider, and oh boy, we've got a big one this time. An oil depot in the Rostov region of Russia was hit, resulting in a fire, and according to Russian state media task, air defense forces are actively working to repel an ongoing attack in the region, and no casualties or injuries have been reported, and apparently the air defense did not work that well because it was hit in spectacular fashion, and it looks like the entire oil depot is on fire now, and we do have several videos and angles of this attack, so let's take a look at this crazy damage. So here we have a video of Ivan in his Batmobile. He's driving down a Russian highway, it looks like, and right over there's some shenanigans going on. It looks like a little bit of a Ukrainian drone attack. in an oil depot, and it looks like it's getting toasty. It looks like daylight over there in Russia, and it's really not. It's nighttime, but you can see right there the oil depot is on fire, and it's a very big fire. This guy's pretty far away from it, and it looks like it's literally right over there over that hill, and it's really not. It's actually a pretty good ways back, but that fire is massive. And once again, fast forwarding a little bit through Ivan's footage here, you can see that there it is, right over the hill, and man, the place is absolutely pulsing with fire, and that is terrible for the Russians indeed. The whole place looks like it's on fire from this one footage. But let's take a look at our next footage here, and see if that is truly the case. And I had to mute the audio in this video, by the way. There's some music playing in the background, but holy cow, the place is actually totally on fire, and you can see right here from this very Porter footage that we're getting right here, that there is a humongous fire at the entire complex of the oil depot here in the Rostov region. That was a serious hit, and once again the Russians, the air defense didn't work that well for the Russians, because why would this be happening? But this is a hell of a fire and a hell of an attack. But moving on here to our next piece of news, this one's going to go to Anton Jenko, and in another clip here we actually heard one of the onlookers say that literally, quote unquote, the whole refinery is on fire, and take a look. According to Russian Telegram channels, and it looks like the fire is not only caught the entire place on fire, but it might be spreading beyond that as well. So certainly this is not going good for the Russians at all, and this looks like it could be quite a serious loss for them. And remember, their economy is currently in shambles right now, and they can't really afford more oil depots getting hit, and also refineries getting smashed, so it looks like this could be really bad for the Russian economy, and also the war effort as well. But anyways, moving on here to our next post, this one is going to go to next. And speaking of the Russian economy, we have some more big news about some shuttering, and also some closings happening inside of the Russian mainland, and we are getting word that over at TH000 shopping malls in Russia are on the verge of bankruptcy, and the crisis stems from the regular and sharp increases in the key interest rate of the Central Bank of Russia. And according to one of their agencies, the recent hike in the key interest rate has led many banks to inform mall owners that the cost of their existing loans will soon rise significantly, and apparently the mall owners actually cannot make those new payments because they are simply too high to be able to afford to stay in business. So it looks like we could see a consumer crisis also happening inside of Russia on top of the banking crisis. And also the other crisis we've seen as well in the real estate market. It looks like pretty much every financial sector in Russia is about to come to a screeching halt, and of course, the ruble did just get halted on the trading market, and that indicates that there is about to be a very big awakening for the Russian country. And you would think that maybe it was just the Russian economy and also their war effort that was going bad, but no, that is actually not the case. But in our next post here from Anton Jenko, we're seeing that the state of Georgia, which is right next to Russia, is also having problems. It looks like the pro-Russian folks there are having a bit of an issue with the civilians inside of Georgia. We're seeing here that according to Anton, mass rallies are taking place in Georgia after the authorities rejected European integration, and protesters gathered in front of the parliament building in Tbilisi, and earlier the country's prime minister announced the refusal to negotiate a cession to the EU until 2028, so it looks like that Russia is trying to exercise the grip on Georgia right now. We of course are seeing these massive riots here in Toys, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. And also we are seeing the situation go down still in Abkhazia, which is a breakaway region of Georgia of course, where the Russians are interfering there as well. So it looks like the Russians are losing their grip pretty much everywhere, including and in of Georgia. So let's take a look at the video, and you can see right here this is a massive crow. I'm going to go ahead and turn that audio down just a little bit here so I can actually hear myself speaking. But you can see right here that there is a massive crowd out here, and they are making their voices heard right into Tbilisi right here because of this EU issue and the accession being put off until 2028, so they are not happy whatsoever about this, and the Russians have a bit of a situation on their hands with that one. But moving into our next post here, it's actually getting even more out of hand, and this video will pretty much speak for itself. So let's take a look, and right here you see that the water cannons, and apparently the lasers have been brought out. It looks like the police are pushing the protesters back, or they're calling them rears, and it looks like they've got the huge skunk truck out here shooting water at the people. So they have the riot shields out, looks like they've got some flags in the mix, and they're also grabbing a few people up and trying to arrest them in the process. So it's chaos right now to Blissing in Georgia, and this situation is about to get worse. Like we've been saying that actually for weeks now, but of course it is a slow process, but it is going to get worse over time as these people start getting more and more anxious about the Russians trying to take control of their country once again. So this is not good whatsoever, and it looks like Putin has several crises that he's dealing with right now that he will have to address sometime, but it looks like they're mounting up and piling up pretty quick, and that might be a bit of a challenge. But nonetheless folks, that is actually our last piece of news for the day. So if you found today's video informative, please press the like button, and also subscribe to the channel as well for more daily war updates just like this one. And of course our news today was a little bit different because typically we do not cover Syrian news, but considering the fact this is a very historical event happening right now in Syria, the first time since 2016 that the city of Aleppo has been breached. We had to give that some due coverage today and cover what is happening there. We could see Aleppo fall in the next coming hours to the rebels, so that could be a very big deal. And also once again we are still seeing the rampant escalations between Ukraine and Russia, mainly on Putin's side. Putin is escalating out of control right now because he's so desperate, and I think the economic issues are about to cause him to go even further to try to distract from his country's failings. So we are seeing all this happen at once, and be sure to join us tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly war news stream. We will have all the remaining news tonight to cover on the stream, so be sure to join us then. And also if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and support the channel that way, which is a very big help because we're largely crowdfunded by the viewers, and to you the viewers that make this all possible. So once again folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you all tonight, and bye bye for now.